All right, so let's practice crafting conditional statements. So the converse, inverse, and contrapositive. So here it says, write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive of each conditional statement, and then determine the truth value of all three statements. If a statement is false, give a counterexample. All right. So number one, if two angles are complementary, then their measures sum to 90 degrees or 90. All right. So first, let's write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive. So first, I'm just going to identify the hypothesis, the if, right? So there's the hypothesis, the if part. So in this case, two angles are complementary. The conclusion is their measures sum to 90, right? That's the then part. Okay, so the converse is we swap those, right? So I can say if, now I'm going to use the conclusion, if their measures sum to 90, then, and now I'm going to put the hypothesis, then those two angles are complementary. Okay, and obviously you could wordsmith that a little bit. You could say if two angles sum to 90, or if two angles have a sum of 90, then they are complementary, or something like that, right? That might be a little better. All right. So then the inverse. So now I'm going to keep the same order as the original, keep the same hypothesis and conclusion, but now I'm going to I'm going to negate each, right? I'm going to put if not, right? If the two angles are not complementary, then their measures do not sum to 90, right? So if two angles are not complementary, then their measures do not sum to 90, right? Okay. All right. And then the contrapositive. So the contrapositive, I'm going to flip and negate. So I'm going to start with the conclusion. So I'm going to say if in the conclusion, but I'm going to negate it. So I'm going to say if, or I can even look at the converse, right, and just negate that. So if two angle measures do not sum to 90, then, okay, so now I'm going to come back to the hypothesis, but I'm going to negate it, then their angles are not complementary. Then they are not complementary. Okay. All right. So let's try this out. So the truth value of the original, if two angles are complementary, then their measures sum to 90. That's true, right? By definition, complementary angles have a sum of 90. Okay. Converse, if their measures sum to 90, then those two angles are complementary. Yeah, I would say that's also true, right? Inverse, if two angles are not complementary, then their angles do not sum to 90. That's true, right? if they're not complementary, then they don't add up to 90 degrees. Okay, and so remember, like there have to be no situations where you could have two angles that are not complementary that wouldn't add up to 90, right? And that's the case here. Contrapositive, if two angle measures do not sum to 90, then they're not complementary. Yeah, that's also true. Okay. All right, so here we have a situation where the truth value of all four statements is true. And this happens in the case of a definition when you have something that, um, like, complementary angles, um, it basically works both ways, right? For angles to be complementary, they add up to 90, and for and that's just by definition, so it works both ways.